Welcome guys to the Trading Psychology and Mindset series. I wanted to go over this tutorial because you would already know that trading psychology lays the foundation to be a professional trader. 90% of the students, 90% of the people who are traders are looking for a gimmick, a tactic, just a style that they can implement. But what they miss are the nuances that go into trading successfully for a living. Think of a fighter. Every fighter wants to learn how to throw a punch, but the professionals, they delve deeper into the lay of the land. For example, Bruce Lee will be thinking about the coiling action of a cobra when trying to understand the power of his punch, or about the nuances of balance and timing. That's what separates a professional from an amateur. A professional understands the lay of the land, understands the science better than an amateur does. An amateur just wants to look on what he has to do in order to trade. A professional wants to understand it deeply, intuitively. So I wanted to go in the first video about the basic framework of what trading is, what it represents, and the fundamental rules that lie at the core of it. Almost every professional trader has some form of these rules. That's the way they understand the markets, and it's essential to fall back on if the markets are not if you do not feel in tune with the markets. So let's begin with this framework and we will progress from there. All right, the first thing I wanted to do is describe how I view trading. So the trading ecosystem, as I view it, is we have buyers in the markets, we have sellers in the market. They bring in some energy, they come together to interact with each other. And the physical representation of that interaction is price. Price is the quantitative representation of the energy that the buyers and the sellers are bringing into the markets. That's all it is. And that's the reality to it. Now you can have millions of buyers and millions of sellers all coming in the markets for different reasons, with different sizes, with different views. And it's very hard to try and understand each one of them in order to figure out the markets. What's easy to understand is the final result of their interaction, which is how I look at price. So if buyers, let's say, are more energetic, they're more aggressive, the sellers at some point will back off because they realize that they will be able to sell the product at a higher price, and you would see them lift their ask price and the buyers buying it aggressively and even taking the price higher. If the sellers are more aggressive, they're ready to sell, buyers will back off a bit because they realize that they will be able to buy it at a lower price. And buyer and the sellers will start hitting every single buy order there is in order to bring the price lower. So you see how price is just a representation of the energy that the buyers and sellers are bringing. Now, if buyers and sellers cannot reach a consensus, if both of them are bringing an almost equal amount of energy, then there will be a battle raging on at a price level, which I called the zone in the previous videos. Based on that battle, we will determine who maintains the energy, and then the other side will fall back, regroup, and there will be another battle at the next zone. And that's all that's what price action is. So this is how I view the markets. And since price is a physical representation of the energy, many of the concepts that apply to energy in the physical world are represented in the price action. For example, one thing that I deeply believe is that the markets are fractals, that price behaves the same way on every time frame, So if you have some patterns that play out on the weekly time frame, they're gonna also play out on the daily and the hourly and the 5 minute time frame. The trends and consolidations, they all appear in the same way regardless of what time frame we are looking at, because energy behaves the same way regardless of what observation scale you're looking at. If you go too granular, then yes, you start to fall into the quantum physics realm. Same way, if you go too granular on the time frames, maybe 1 second chart, then yes, you will start to see a lot of noise in the data. But I'm talking about a larger overview. So based on that, we come to the next concept, that markets are never wrong. Why? Because markets are simply the physical representation of the energy that's being brought into the markets. Right? Like, price is simply representing the energy that the buyers and sellers are bringing. It has no bias, it has no judgment. Price is simply the representation, and hence it cannot be wrong. You might have different views to the market. You might be thinking about the macro situation and thinking about all the fear that's out in there. But if the price is not showing that, it means that the rest of the market does not agree with your view, in which case you have to change your view, because price is simply a representation. It's nothing against you. So there will be times when you have every reason to believe that the market will go down. And if it doesn't, you would at some point start fighting with it. Be like, it's being manipulated, something is going wrong. But you have to realize that that manipulation part is also being done through a buyer or seller. That's also part of the energy of the ecosystem. And by itself, that energy, the manipulation, is not being able to change the whole ecosystem. It just integrates into the ecosystem. Which means the manipulation, the organic buying, the organic selling, all of it comes together to show as price. And that has the final say. That's the only thing that matters. So when you start to look at markets as just an energy representation with no bias, with no judgments, you will start to realize that price is the truth. That's the final culmination of this interactive ecosystem in which all kinds of opinions, beliefs about the markets, and different interests come together. This is why it's crucial, especially when you're trying to fight the markets, to remember back these wise words of Jesse Livermore. Markets are never wrong, opinions often are. So the third thing, the next thing we go to, is that markets have existed since the dawn of human civilization. When the first two people came together, they realized one had something that the other wanted, and the other had something that the first one wanted, and they made an exchange, and that's what a market is. Markets have always existed since the beginning of time, and they will exist as long as humans are there, because not one person can have everything they need, and they will always have to get it from someone else. So markets are simply have an infinite existence on the time scale, and you are here for a limited time. But while you are here, you will keep getting opportunities from the markets. Because markets exist on an infinite time scale at every single moment, you can always enter the market whenever you choose to, and you can always exit when you choose to. Markets simply do not run out of opportunities. And that's something that you have to understand, because this is something that the amateurs always do, is they would FOMO into stuff. They would be worried about missing out on this great opportunity because that will change their life, or some form of reasoning of this manner, and then they will put themselves into risky situations which are not worth it. Since markets have always existed, will always exist, and have infinite opportunities, you choose when you want to participate in the markets. Because there's no time limit, unless you take 80 years for a trade, in which case, yes, your life age is a limiting factor. But for the most part, there is no pressure to get into the markets unless you have a good opportunity. You wait till the ball till the pitch is right in your strike zone before you swing. If you guys watch baseball, I don't know many of you do. In baseball, the batter is supposed to swing when when the ball is right in the strike zone, because that's where he scores the best. Now in baseball, you're limited in the number of balls you can get. But in the markets, you're not. In the markets, you can wait years for that beautiful pitch where you go all in. That was not to suggest that go all in on one trade where you think the opportunity is worth it. The whole point is, in markets, you can wait as long as you want to find a good opportunity, because there are infinite opportunities and they exist at all times. And you do not let markets ruin your life. You choose when to get in the markets. Don't let the markets force you to get into them. And this is something very crucial, which a lot of beginners have a problem with. They want to participate in the markets every day. Do not get into that temptation. The fourth fundamental truth of the markets is that the markets are a complex system. In the first slide, I touched upon it, how markets have a lot of buyers, a lot of sellers coming from all different backgrounds and regions with different objectives coming together in this one place and bringing in their energy that interacts in order to form price. Since markets are a complex system, it means there are a lot of different factors that are interacting. It's very hard to find the exact causal relationships in the market. A lot of amateurs think that once I understand every single reason of why things happen in the markets, I will be able to make money. So they will try and map out every single factor. For example, the interest rates, the volatility, the treasuries, the bond markets, every single thing. They try and find causal relationships on how things interact. And trust me, I went down that path when I first started trading. I would try and think about how the commodities in Australia affect the Aussie dollar and the oil affects the Canadian dollar, and how their interaction with China would matter in some other forex department. And you start to realize that those causal relationships don't work one-on-one. That's because markets are a complex system, and for humans, it's very hard to map out every second order and third order effect. Now, if you guys are aware of a bit of the butterfly effect in chaos theory, it talks about how butterfly flapping its wings in one part of the world can create a tornado in the other part of the world. Because that's how complex systems work. You can have significant effects of a small event in one part of the system. And it's very hard to figure out the chain of events that led to the significant event. One person buying some small unknown shitcoin in one part of the crypto ecosphere could lead to the liquidation of the biggest exchange in the world. How that would happen, it was very hard to figure that part out. And this is why trying to find causal relationships for every single thing in the markets, or trying to find reasons for why something happened, is bound to take you nowhere. This is why I prefer to focus on the price, because price is the final representation of all the events that happen. That complex system with all its interactions gave us an output, which is the price. And it's a lot easier to study and trade that output rather than trying to find the reason for it. However, that does not stop other people to try and find reasons for it. Why? Because they are there to explain it to millions and billions of amateurs of why things are happening. As humans, we always have a tendency to try and find a reason for something, and it baffles us when we cannot. So most people in the markets would try and find reasons for why something happened in order to satisfy that need. We have this big industry, which is financial news. And these guys use the fanciest words, try and use nice explanations to show why things work the way they do. But most of it is hindsight bias. They have almost zero predictive power. At the start of every year, you would see that the best analysts from the banks try and give their year-end estimates for the S&P 500. Almost all of those estimates are clustered together, and almost every year they're wrong. So this is something you have to realize, that the news is mostly hindsight bias. They try and explain after the event, but if they were good at trying to find the causal relationships in a complex system, they would have some predictive power, which they don't. This is why I don't personally look at the news at all. If there's a surprise news that the market had no idea about, let's say if US decides to ban crypto today, it would have a significant impact. And there's not much you can do about that kind of news that comes out. But most of the other news is something that the market already knows will come out, something like a big number print, NFP or the CPI or the FOMC meetings. So the market expects some news to come out, and the effect of the news won't be in direct relation to what the news is. It will be in relation to how the news is perceived by the markets. Let's say the market had some expectation for the news and the news came a lot better, then the market will have one reaction compared to if the news came worse compared to the expectations. So the news by itself does not matter. It's the expectations the market had in relation to that news that will affect the price impact it makes. And that's a crucial difference, because many times you would see a stock sell off after good earnings, and you would have people always questioning like, oh, the earnings were great, the guidance is great, why is the stock selling off? It's because of the expectations the market had for the earnings. If the expectations were more than what the stock delivered, then it will sell off despite good earnings and good guidance. But if the expectations were bad and then we get good guidance and good earnings, then the stock will skyrocket. So the news impact it has on the market depends on the expectations the market had regarding that news. The way I think of it is, the news is an external shock or jolt of energy into the system, and how well that energy is absorbed depends on how well the system is ready to take that external jolt. If the system is not ready for a big external jolt, right, the system will see a lot more chaos. But if the system can absorb a lot of external energy, then it won't see that much chaos. And this is how I perceive the markets and the effect of the news on it. I hope this simplification of the way I look at the market and I look at that ecosystem helps you out, tries and removes the fluff from your thinking and helps you focus on the only thing that matters, which is price. We'll build on this mindset, on this framework, and how you can use it to better your trading. But first, I wanted to introduce you to the lay of the land on the chessboard that you're playing on in order to take a full advantage of it. That's it for the first tutorial video. I'll see you in the next one.